Welcome to Speaking Opera. My name is Hart, and I have been doing this podcast for a while. I have a special guest today. I was not expecting this. 2024 has been a magical year for the podcast. And there was a particular singer who's here with us today, so this is happening today, who I have wanted to interview for a long, long time, have followed around, and a friend of mine called me, asked me to go to Caramore this summer with him. He said, there's someone there that you'll definitely want to hear. And so we went. It was Apollo's Fire performing, and the soprano was Amanda Forsythe. And I can only say this is the greatest experience this year for me. If anything outdoes this, I can't imagine. I have wanted to interview Amanda for a long time. I'm a huge fan. This woman can do anything. She is amazing on stage and so forth. I am so excited to have Amanda today, having Amanda with us today, and she will tell us about her career. One of the secrets with having a good relationship with singers is to understand that they are people and that they share the same things as everyone else, but they have a special gift called musicianship, which Amanda has par excellence. Welcome, Amanda Forsythe.
Well, thank you, and thank you for that very sweet introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
You're wonderful. You're wonderful. When when we were in Caramore this summer, and I hadn't seen the program, I knew that he was singing Handel,
yeah.
And there was some Vivaldi being performed. Mm-hmm. Right? And I thought, my friend who took me knows one of my favorite arias of all time is Da Tempeste, which is one of your signature.
It's my party piece.
And he told me, he said, you smiled through the whole thing. I just went wild afterwards. And so what happened was my friend said, why don't you ask Amanda to do a podcast, to do an interview? And I felt very shy, which is not really who I am. I don't know how that happened, but for a moment I felt shy. And then I went back, and you were signing CDs, this CD, Love, and you were so nice. I walked up to you. I felt like a kid. It was nice. And I said, Amanda, would you possibly consider doing a podcast? And we have a mutual friend, Zachary. And you said yes, and I was so happy. It made the whole day. It was a great concert.
Oh, thank you.
And it was Zachary Wilder, I should say.
Well, I'm so glad that you overcame your shyness to ask me.
It was wonderful. I've seen you so many times.
Oh.
You have the one role that I can't ever see anybody in again is Popea. You own Popea. It is your greatest, if I may say, it's the role that you just, I've seen others. There's no one. You own that role.
Did you see the Boston Early Music Festival one or the Boston Baroque one?
Both.
Both, okay.
I've seen everything now that I live in Boston. I've seen every single thing that you've ever done in Boston. I saw La Serva Padrona, both productions.
Okay.
Is that covering me?
Yeah, that goes back a few years. There was 10 years or so in between.
Right.
So when did you leave New York?
I left New York in 2011.
Okay.
I went for 5 years because I thought I was working in the music business, and I thought, well, I'll stay 5 years, and I stayed 36 years.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I love New York. I'm a native New Yorker myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't see myself moving back until I'm like in my 70s. I think New York is a great city to live in when you're older. So you can just jump out, take a cab, go to a show, go to dinner, don't need a car.
I'll tell you a secret. I've never driven a car in my life.
Yeah, well, you can do that if you're, where were you before New York?
When I was 18, I grew up here in Wakefield.
Okay.
I moved to Beacon Hill and Harvard Square.
Okay.
Do I need to see why I didn't?
No cars.
And Boston's walkable. Then when I moved to New York, I lived on 89th and Riverside. I have a lot of friends with cars. You're making me tell the truth today.
I'm sorry, I should have got the interview going backwards here.
Oh, no, that was wonderful. One should have friends with cars and apartments that have something beyond a couch to sleep on.
That's true. I know. I keep saying I need more rich friends with apartments and beautiful locations.
Many things can happen. So I would like to start, if I may, by asking you a bit about your early days in studying music, and maybe something that happened before that you were studying, and people that were influential in that period of your time in music and beginnings.
Well, if you were going to ask my mom this question, she would say that I was always singing ever since I was a little kid. And I was living on Roosevelt Island as a child. And they actually had a great choir program there. And I sang for that organization. And I did the local theater shows. So Sound of Music and Oliver. And actually sang, my first professional job was when I was 8. And I sang backup vocals on a Romper Room record starring Joey Lawrence. So
that is very interesting. That's not on your resume.
It is not on my resume. Yeah, I don't think many people know that. But it is my first sort of insight into the professional world. I got paid $40, which for an 8-year-old in the 80s was a good chunk of change. And then I kept doing musical theater sort of in high school. And when I got to college, I went to Vassar for my undergraduate. I actually didn't get voice lessons. I auditioned for them and it wasn't meant to be, so I tried out for an a cappella group, and I ended up singing in an a cappella group for 4 years. And then later in that year, I did get a voice teacher at Vassar who was wonderful, and Marianne Hart. You know Marianne? Yeah. She was in New York. Vassar always got great voice teachers because it's so close to New York City, so the teachers would just take the train up. And I was not super serious about music. I had studied piano before. I sang in choirs. I was really interested in the oceans, and I was actually hoping to be a marine biologist. And then I don't know exactly what happened, but I just decided that singing was probably more glamorous. So I decided in my senior year I was going to take a year off and then apply to grad schools, which is what I did. So I had a year living in the city, working temp jobs, and I had a lot of jobs. And then I came up to New England Conservatory to start my 2-year master's degree. And while I was up here, I met my future husband, and I also met Martin Perlman of Boston Baroque, and he was the first one to sort of take a chance on me. And I did, I think, a few professional chorus things. I think I sang Messiah with him. And then he started giving me little lines here and there. And then he started hiring me. And for a long time, he was the only one who was hiring me. So I'm very grateful to Marty, who is retiring this year. I don't know if you saw.
That. Yeah.
I know. It's their 52nd year, I think. I've been really lucky because the sort of slow pace of my career has allowed me to figure out who I am and how to sing healthily, which I'm hoping is going to lead to an extended career. But there was many lean years along the way. And I had Boston Baroque, I had the Boston Early Music Festival, and Apollo's Fire. Those were the 3 groups that really nurtured me, and I learned so much from working with those conductors. And then I had sort of this second career in Europe where I spent 3 summers in Pesaro at the Rossini Opera Festival. And I had an agent hear me at one of those shows, and it was a really in the right place at the right time kind of situation. This agent said, Sandrine Pio, who's one of my, I just idolize her, that she was pulling out of a production. I think she might have been pregnant. And could I jump into a production of Ariodante in Geneva? And I got that job, and it was, it was amazing cast. It was Patricia Pettibon singing Ginevra, and Joyce DiDonato. It was her role debut of Ariodante. All these great people, and it was that sort of, I had a professional opera job, and people were willing to hire me. And so I ended up doing, I've done many shows at Covent Garden at this point. I've kind of pulled away from the opera world now, but I'm glad that I did it. Yeah.
You performed with in Beethoven's Fidelio, which surprised me. I just ordered the DVD of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me know what you think, because I actually loved that production. That was also maybe the production that made me decide that I was done with opera, because it was it was pre-pandemic. It was January, February, March of 2020. And so I had actually pulled the boys out of school. and enrolled them in a school in London for those 3 months. And then everything started going south, and I ended up leaving before the final show, which was canceled anyway. So yeah, the time that I need to spend on these opera jobs was just getting to be too hard. The kids are older now. You know, I've got one son who just started high school. They're not going to allow themselves to be taken out of school anymore for 2 months. And I don't, frankly, want to be away from them for 2 months at a time. So I've really made a hard shift to just concert work, or opera if it happens to be here in town, which luckily I get to do still a fair amount.
Yeah. You're busy. You're still doing concerts and.
Yeah. Concerts are great. You know, I'm going to Chicago next week in a few days to sing Mozart's Coronation Mass and some Handel duets and arias with the Chicago Symphony. And that's just great. I'll go in. I'm working with the conductor, Nicholas Kramer, who I've worked with before. You know, I've sung at the symphony a bunch, and just go in, make beautiful music. And honestly, I love opera. I really do. I think it's the complete art form. I do buy into all that. But I have also sung concert versions of opera and seen concert versions of opera that are just as moving.
It's interesting you would say that, because I've seen you in concert opera.
Yeah.
And recently I saw La Rondine in concert. It was so moving because the actor, everything just came together. In a way, there was less distraction, and sometimes the modern, won't get into this too much, but some of the productions are very distracting. They have nothing to do with the music.
Yeah, it's true. I've been really lucky that most of the shows I've done, this Fidelio, like I said, I'm interested to hear what you think about it, because the first half is very traditional, and then the second half is just a different set, a different costume aesthetic, because the two halves of Fidelio are so incredibly different. So I think modern can definitely work, or just like quirky. You know, I did the magic flute, the Barry Kosky magic flute with the black and white and sort of 1920s, with all these graphics behind you. And I think that works brilliantly. It takes out all the dialogue, which nobody misses. You know, just have a few thought bubbles. So I like that kind of updating. But yeah, some of the productions are difficult.
I'm in and out with it. Sometimes the updatings work very well. Like I saw a Traviata in Cincinnati that was updated into the flapper time.
Okay.
It worked really well. The singing was really good all the way around, which helped.
Yeah.
But also it didn't distract from any of the action. So I think it depends on the opera somewhat too.
Yeah, I mean, here in Boston, especially if you've been to the Boston Early Music Festival productions, this is hard. It's traditional.
That's the real.
It's so beautiful. I think, you know, it's so hard to do. We spend so much time on the stagings of these things. And what I think makes Boston Early Music Festival special compared to other groups is the dancers. I mean, they have this incredible troupe of dancers that are so knowledgeable and so beautiful. And it's the only company I've worked with where dance has so seamlessly been incorporated into the action.
I was thinking of the performance Versailles.
Yeah.
Which it was magical.
Yeah.
It was magical. Now, you sang Orfeo, you recorded it, but then you did an Orfeo with Urufsky that was music by different composers.
Yes.
That was fascinating.
That was fun. Well, the Sartorio and the Rossi Orfeo especially is gorgeous. I mean, there's so much music out there. Actually, have you seen Chaos on Netflix?
Not yet.
It's just so it's, anyway, it brings it to mind because it's, so Jeff Goldblum is Zeus. He's still looking very good, I have to say. And they follow the Orpheus myth, you know, descending down into the underworld. And, you know, all the singers I know are watching this and we're like, oh, you know, we recognize the different characters. And, you know, so much of the operas that we do, are, especially in the Baroque world, are about these ancient myths. So anyway, it's a fun modernization.
It's on my list. I was going to ask you, and I think you answered some part of it already, but how did you end up, or how did your career, we associate you so much with Baroque music, and I know you've done other music as well, but even a large part of your recorded history is with Baroque music. How did that happen? Was it out of choice, or?
Well, now I think if I was given a choice, I would definitely choose Baroque music. I do think it's the most beautiful and collaborative sort of art form that you can be in, because I write all my own ornaments. You get to compose so much of it, and just looking at a Baroque score, and this is not just for singers, this is obviously for players. I did a tour with an Italian group this year that, it was all basically ground basses. They would have like bum, 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 bum. And if they had just played that, it would have been the most boring concert ever. But all of them were just improvising crazy every night, doing something different. And we get to do that. We get to indulge our creative side with Baroque music. But I think I ended up doing so much of it because of Marty taking such a chance on me, and then other Baroque groups saying, well, if she sung with Boston Baroque, then she can probably sing with our group. And I was doing more modern, actually I was doing modern music for a while when I was at Tanglewood for 2 summers as a fellow. We did contemporary music all the time. And actually Baroque and contemporary go hand in hand a lot, because usually the quality of the voice is something straighter, and composers always want to hear the notes they've written rather than sort of an approximation. But I really stopped doing that maybe 10 years ago, and also the Rossini, which was super fun, but the real opera world is very different and much less supportive, I find, than the Baroque opera world. There's more competition, and I just felt like every time I would see singers, that I know from that world, they'd be like, so, what do you have next? Where are you going next? Like, it was always just this I just felt it was very competitive. And Baroque music, you're working with the same people over and over again. They're more like family than anything else. So, yeah, it's great.
I have a question that has to do with your voice. You are one of the few singers of your voice type category that has kept an even register from top to bottom. I want to know the secret, because many of the I don't like to criticize singers because I love opera so much, and I love many of the singers. I know many of them, and I don't like criticizing. But your top is so shimmering and bright, and has never ever, it's always there, and you never, to me, when I listen to you, I never feel like, oh, she's going to make it, kind of thing. But also, as important, you have, your lower register is rich and audible, which is not always true with lyric sopranos in music, especially Baroque music, isn't always true. There's sometimes no chest, or no, I don't want to use chest, but lower register.
No, I use chest. All my teachers were mezzos, and I don't know if that has something to do with my focus on my lower voice, because when I was younger, that was definitely my weakest point, as it is for all young singers. Sopranos always, I think, struggle building up that lower voice. And having kids helped with that.
Really?
Just hormonally, I think. Or maybe it's age. But I spend much more time warming up my low to middle register than I do my top notes.
It was very rich. When I heard you this summer, I once again noticed your voice is even from top to bottom. There's no breaks.
Well,
unless you choose to do it musically.
Yeah. I would love, wouldn't it be great to just be a bass? I mean, I know that they probably work really hard, but in my mind, they just kind of roll out of bed and stretch and like smoke something. Have these rich voices pouring out of them.
And they're probably listening to you thinking, what is it like to have an upper register like that?
Honestly, though, when I am singing coloratura, this is not an answer to your question, but I will say that I sometimes feel like gymnasts must feel when they're doing like all these flips. Like, it really is fun. Like, I find it really, really fun when everything's working, when you're healthy and it's all just going. It is, and you'll see when I sing, I'm always, I look crazy when I'm singing, but then when I'm done, I'm smiling because I'm having a good time. But roles that I would like to sing, I have never sung Susanna, and in Nozze di Figaro, and that is one just because it's my favorite opera, and it's so beautiful. And in concert, somebody out there hire me to sing Susanna because I would love it, and it would make my mom really happy too. It's her favorite opera. I like every time I think that I've done most of the Handel roles, somebody will say, oh, well, have you ever done this? And I'm like, no. Have you done this one? No. So there's a lot of big Handel roles out there that I'm still very interested in doing. Rodelinda and Theodora. I've never done a Theodora. I know. It's just these big holes in my in my career. So Alcina. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Alcina would be a great.
It would be
fit for
fun.
you.
You know, I had a real Jeanette Sorrell actually was the one who has said you have to stop thinking of yourself as a seconda donna only. She's like, you can do leading roles. And it's funny with Boston Baroque, we're doing Ariadante in the spring, and I've always been a Delinda. And Marty's like, can you sing Ginevra? I was like, well, there's no reason why I can't sing Ginevra. Sure. So I am kind of mentally, I think it's a mental thing also.
I think you'd be a wonderful Alcina.
Well, it'd be
You
fun.
know, Pettibon sang Alcina.
Well,
You can have. There's no one voice for Alcina, but you have the dynamics and the personality. I think you really.
I would also like
fit.
there's roles that I would like to revisit. Like I've only done Cleopatra once, and that was in concert in Moscow just before the war started. And they had asked me back to do Partenope and Semele again. I would love to do Semele again, actually. So I would like to revisit a lot of those Handel things. But for roles like that I never could sing, I love Traviata. That would be so much fun.
Well,
if I could do those, I don't really have a good high E flat. That's the problem. Yeah. So.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. I keep thinking that I might, but I don't.
It's not in the score, so you don't have to sing.
But people would judge me.
They wait.
You know what I saw the other day at a concert? Do you know Cynthia Seddon? She was a queen of the night in her day. Beautiful, gorgeous voice. And she told me that she was still singing Queen of the Night in her 60s, which just amazed me. So, but she always had those notes until she didn't, you know. But if you can get into your 60s with still these high Fs. Yeah. I never had a high F, ever.
No. I don't think Handel would.
No, he doesn't ask that. Actually, I'm doing Prophetic Raptures, which is a big coloratura Handel aria from Joseph and His Brethren, that old Handel chestnut.
Right.
But I'm doing with Chicago Symphony next week, and of course I've only ever done it at 4:15, and now I'm sort of rethinking my ornaments, saying, all these high Ds might not be the best idea. So, we'll see.
So those are the non-bass roles. Oh,
Yeah, those. I don't know any other fun soprano things. Oh, I don't know. A good juicy mezzo role could be fun too, or like a big. You know, when I did that Fidelio, it was with Lisa Davidson, who is phenomenal. Yeah. She and Stephanie Blythe are the two people that I've stood next to where I just felt my whole body vibrating from the power of their voices. I mean, just such big, gorgeous, healthy voices. So something like that, just for a day, to open your mouth and have that wall of sound come pouring out, that would be cool. You'll see in that video, they've sort of changed the plot a bit so that Marceline, that Leonore comes out to Marceline as a woman in that production, and she sings her big aria to me, and I was just looking in her mouth while she was singing it and just trying to figure out the mechanics of how she was creating so much gorgeous sound. So yeah, she's phenomenal.
I look forward to.
Yes.
So I think somebody who's watching this, if you have a production of The Marriage of Figaro,
yes, especially in concert,
you know where to come. You know where to come.
I'm available.
I did want to mention your recordings because they and I wish these are all. Zachary Wilder and I talked about this. I said, why don't they release the videos? Because they have sections, and the Amadigi, there's a lot of wonderful singing there. It's not,
Yeah.
I know you don't like the costume.
I like the costume.
But it's not an opera that is easily, there are some operas that are loads of DVDs and videos, or for that matter, more so actually would be the Popea that you did with Anthony.
Yeah. I mean, they were thinking about releasing that entire one. I think there were a few things holding them back. But yeah, Bempf especially, everyone would appreciate those beautiful videos.
The Almira, is it 4 hours or close to it?
It's a long listen.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful show, though. That was my favorite.
was kissed by God, if I may say.
That was
They
perfect.
was we walked in and with the lighting, the way it was done, you were amazing. There was, but all the singing was really good, and I was surprised when we left. It was almost, I think it's close to 4 hours, right?
Yeah,
the opera.
it's a long sing, and the Circe last year was also close to.
That's wonderful.
That's beautiful too. That dancing in that one was really spectacular. Yeah, I mean, they should be putting their shows out on DVD. I think it's a financial.
I would wonder if they might have videos that are packed.
Oh, they have them.
Yeah.
Because they film everything. In fact, they're doing a film of Circe, not the whole thing, but they're doing some gala later this month, and they'll be showing scenes from it. So it exists. Maybe one day it'll.
They do
be
a very
released.
nice job. They even have. I was surprised with a few of them. They have the English subtitles,
Yeah.
which is really nice, and it really does make it much more interesting and brings people in.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
No, I agree. I've been so lucky with Jeanette and with Boston Early Music Festival to record so many CDs with them. I mean, BEMF is putting out 2 CDs a year at this point. I was thinking of what CDs I have coming up, and there's like 5 or 6 that are in production. One of them,
Excellent.
somebody sent me a review of it. I said, oh, I didn't even know.
Which one is it?
It's a solo CD that I recorded last summer of Telemon with BEMF, and it's fabulous. It has the I Know cantata, which is this big one-woman show, super dramatic, and then a bunch of arias from his operas, which don't get done that often, although one of them, Emma und Egenhard, we will be doing, I don't know if we're going to do it in Boston, but we're doing it in Germany, maybe in Magdeburg, which I think is where Telemann was from. Don't quote me on that.
I don't know.
I think Magdeburg has some significance. And that's got some just absolutely gorgeous music. I mean, the Telemann is very heavily orchestrated a lot of the time, so it's quite expensive to put on. You know, you need horns and all this stuff. But it's just so rich. It's really a treasure trove.
The Love CD is so good. I've given it to a number of friends of mine who are like opera and don't know very much. You know, what's good, you know, kind of thing. And every one of them have said just
nice.
love it.
That was a great CD, and I'm actually going to try to convince Jeanette to do a Mozart CD with me, because I would love to do one.
Why don't you put the Susanna aria?
I could do those. You know, they're not so flashy as like standalone arias, but I've done enough concert arias. You know, not the crazy high E's and F's ones, but enough. I have a good chunk of Handel now that I feel like I could put on disc and add some small contribution to to Mozart.
You're singing later on this month. It's October. You're singing in New York City.
Yes. I'm doing Jauchzit Gott, the Bach, big Bach cantata with trumpet, with Orchestra of St. Luke's.
Oh,
so I think they're celebrating a big season too. Maybe are they on 50 years?
I'm not
Possibly, I think so. So that'll be fun. Yeah, and then it's practically on to Messiah time.
Many singers and musicians say that they should send a percentage of their fee to Handel, because the messiahs are the money makers when things are thin.
Oh no, it's really true. And the thing is, I love Messiah. I never get tired of it. And I don't mind if I'm doing it with a big, you know, modern orchestra or with a Baroque band. Like I like it equally. I've done super cut versions. I've done a lot of uncut versions. That's not a sturdy way I'm saying it like that. I did one where we did 2 in one day. You know, it's
2 performances.
Yep, a double header, and you know, it's great. It's just a great piece, and I'm doing it in San Francisco this year. If their negotiations go well, I hope, with their chorus, and I'm doing it 2 in England, I think. So yeah.
You've recorded it twice.
I've only recorded it once. Yeah, with Jeanette.
With Jeanette.
With the Paul's Fire. Yeah. That was a long time ago, so I probably do some things differently now. That's the problem with CDs is, you know, there's always this issue of is it better to record first, and then when you do the tour or whatever, you have the CD to offer, or to do the production and then record the CD. You know, I've done it both ways, and both have merits, but I do find the CDs that we've recorded before we've done a tour, it changes so much the more you do it, and you have many more insights. So
the old way in the 60s with, singers, the approach, I worked in the music business for a long time selling. I was actually in sales and promotion for imported recordings. But singers were asked to sing the roles on stage first before they recorded them, so they had it in their voice. And I think, a feel for what was going on with the character.
The pacing and when you do just arias CDs, obviously you're losing all the context. Right. And sometimes it sounds super flat. I prefer actually to have, somebody out there listening, so you have someone to sing to. Yeah, but I've been really lucky with all the CDs, honestly, and I love making them because I just feel like I'm preserving, this part of me for the future, and it's your chance to if it doesn't go well, you get to do it again, and I really do love it. So I've got another Handel solo CD coming out of the Roman cantatas, so Agrippina and Armida, with some arias from Trionfo del Tempo, so things that he wrote when he was in Rome for those few years. And there's a Carissimi disc coming out, and a three ladies concert of music, a lot of music by Rossi. I'm trying to remember what else is on this CD. I'm doing a lot of Italian stuff now. So I am amicably divorced from my husband, who's also a musician and lives here in Boston. And now I'm dating an Italian gamba player and have been for 7 years. And so I'm doing a lot of things with his group now, which is fun. And I heard you say that you're learning Italian.
My father said to me, because I'm like Scotch background, he said, I don't know where you came from. He said, I was like 10 and I loved opera since I'm 5 years old, which is a long time ago. And I loved the language. My favorite language has always been Italian. So he said, well, maybe somewhere, in the past somewhere. But my attraction to the art of Italy and the language, I think, is my favorite language.
And the food.
But the music and the food.
The
put
food
them all
is my
in.
downfall.
And with that, you don't have to put them in any order because they all work.
Oh, it's true.
Italian's so wonderful. I can tell you a secret. I don't know if I'll leave this on here or not, but for my 80th birthday, which is in 5 or 6 months.
What?
Yes. I'm
is
going
that the
to
secret?
be I'll be 80. I will be sitting in Rome drinking espresso. The secret is listening to a lot of opera.
Okay.
And being somewhat a little off, not taking everything too seriously.
And not driving a car.
Not driving a car helps. And having wonderful friends.
Yeah.
Wonderful friends. Every once in a while, this has happened a few times this year, I've met somebody that I feel like I've always known. I don't know how that works. I think it comes in the voyage of life, the journey of life, where you just meet someone and you feel like I've known them forever. I don't know what I didn't know them.
Well, and we know all the same people. I think that helps. We know the New York experience. We have the same,
I still cry when I go to Madame Butterfly.
Oh, yeah. Butterfly and Carmelites. Those are the two that I cannot get through without crying.
I went to the Carmelites at the Met. I was like this piece of music is one of the great pieces ever written.
That ending? Is there anything better? I mean, it's just so good. It's so good. Yeah.
I'm friends with Eileen Perez, and she sang the Blanche.
Oh.
But everyone was really, all of the singers were wonderful. They really were. I was like in tears, and so everyone around me was. I could hear people audibly. I could hear crying near me.
I remember seeing that. I guess it was at the Met with Heidi Grant Murphy was singing that role. And she was wonderful. I used to usher at the Met.
You did?
I did. After grad school, I spent a year working a bunch of jobs, and one of them was, I was like the worst usher. I was just there to see everything.
Over there.
But it was great. It was like Pavarotti's last year, really performing. He was doing Tosca that year. And
it was probably Pat.
Yeah, Carita Matula. They're all these great singers. So, but again, I was my job, my number one job was to tell people who had paid for standing room only tickets that they couldn't sit down. And I was like, I'm not going to do that.
No,
They want to sit till
really.
I said,
I've been on that in that situation.
No, exactly. Who hasn't?
Yeah.
And the other job was to tell people that if they were going to leave when it wasn't time, that they wouldn't be allowed back in.
Yeah, that's a tough call.
So I was really bad because I would just see the light out of the corner of my eyes of them going out into the hall and be like, oh, well, it's too late. So, but it was fun. It was fun.
That's wonderful.
It was between that year I did so many strange jobs. I was, if you ever go to Carmine's, family style Italian restaurant, I still love it.
I do too.
I brought my kids there, and they were not as impressed as I was.
I think it's a different time. I don't know.
I used to sing Christmas carols there. I had a little quintet, so we would go around. This is when we were young and cute, and we would wear like little Mrs. Santa outfits, and people were so gross. It was all businessmen, and it was but I was young. And
so one of the answers of how to, as life goes on, to stay, never lose a sense of humor and who you are.
Yeah.
And also maybe not having people have power over your life when you can choose at a certain point. I'll never use the word retired. I love doing the interviewing. This for me it's strange because I did this in the 80s.
Yeah.
I had a radio show. I was a guest. I didn't have a radio show. I was a guest. I did interviews on KCR and NYC and so forth with my friend Tim Page. Actually, we interviewed Schwarzkopf. That was amazing.
I want to hear about that later, off the air.
That's why. Actually, Tim and I need to get together because we have some funny stories about that. I was so happy, and I was also much younger, and I was so taken back, and I was thinking, I was there recording it because it was the old days. We didn't have this. We had cassette players. She was so friendly and nice to me. You remember how people treat you. That's something that has come very much. I see this now as I've got hundreds of performances of operas. Singers need to be fed, and so do the audience does too. And singers and musicians who take time just for a moment to sign their name or say, "Oh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed this." It means a lot to a lot of people that are sometimes alone. This might be the only thing in their lives that they have that they love.
Well, Philippe Jarouski is somebody that has impressed me so much with this. He is so devoted to his fans. And when we did that tour, it was the second half was the third act of the Gluck, and then the first half was like the Rossi and the Sartorio Orfeos is sort of a mix of that. Mm-hmm. And he's like a rock star. At every place we went, we would be there for 2 hours signing CDs. Nobody cared about me, but he wanted me next to him. Well, and he remembered his fans' names, and they were bringing him, scarves they had knitted, and he remembered them, and he was so gracious. And I just thought, he's a mensch, he's a good guy. So, but that's interesting. The singers need to be fed. I've never thought about it that way, but it's very true.
It's both ways. I've had friends who I've seen the sacrifice, let me put it that way, of what singers really have to go through. It's not going to the Met and seeing somebody who sings and leave and that's it. But people sacrifice so much. You know much better than I do because you experience it. But sometimes you have to give up something when somebody else can go out and stay up half the night and do this and that or whatever. It's not the same.
No, I actually, during the pandemic, I had such a great pandemic.
You made up for the last time?
Seriously, no, well, number one, because I had COVID in 2020. When I was doing that Fidelio, I had it, which I was just really sick. And when I came home in April, they had those antibody tests where you could find out if you had it. And once I know that I had it and my kids had it, I was like, well, now I can just relax. I wasn't stressed, or everyone else was super stressed. And I had a group of friends, and, I could drink, I could stay up late. I mean, I don't really have many vices, to be honest, but I could drink.
But you never know. Yeah. There might be something around the corner that you haven't found yet.
But yeah, when I retire, I think that will be something that I look forward to.
Good.
Yeah.
But hopefully not too soon.
I'm not planning to.
No.
I am really not planning to. Everything still's working, so.
Should I send you my score of Marriage of Figaro just to put it next to you to remind yourself?
I have mine. Actually, I had Aaron Sheehan. Do you know Aaron from various productions? Aaron Sheehan and
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh, he's in everything I go to.
Yeah, so
he's very nice. He's a nice guy.
He's super nice. So he came over on Monday with Teresa Wakeham, and it's another fabulous soprano, and Jason McStutes, fabulous tenor. And they're all quite good pianists. And so Aaron was playing, and Tess and I sang the Sullaria just for fun. So, we get our kicks.
I shall rouse in hell to wage against you. Remember that?
No.
That was your aria
in
English from Melissa. Should I not mention that because you hated the costumes? You sounded great.
Oh no, they put a video on YouTube.
That's right.
That's nice. It's nice, actually.
Actually, they show you throwing the jewelry and your
oh, that is less nice. There's the second aria from that, not the rage one with the trumpet, but the sort of pretty one with the oboe obbligato. That's very beautiful. I can't remember the words.
But the rage one,
together.
I watched it like 5 times because I love it. Well, I think there was an adrenaline. I was getting an adrenaline rush watching it because you're very excited in that. And we were in the front row. So, you know those round things you get on?
Yeah.
They up and down. I don't know. That was a lot of whatever. They must have added to it, just trying to concentrate on the music and getting up and down on those things, all that.
Oh,
but it was very effective.
That's funny. Some of the things that I think the scariest thing I ever had to do as a singer was jump into a production of Ariadante in Munich. They had lost their Delinda. I had done it like 6 months before, so it was pretty fresh in my mind. But we had made some cuts, whereas this version hadn't. And I think it was a Christopher Alden or David Alden. No, I think it was Christopher Alden production. And I just got on a plane and I went. And I arrived in the morning. I did staging all that day, and then the next day I did the show. And it was the staging was crazy. It was like, now you're going to dance this super complicated dance, and then one of them is like, now on this aria you're going to be lighting matches and lighting this candelabra, and then when you do the capo, you're going to stick your hand into the flames, like you're like, oh, and I was like, and I just had all this stuff, and there was this one thing where there were these series of like rolling. I don't know what they were supposed to symbolize. I was literally just like on adrenaline, and I had to like roll under one and over one, and they ask a lot of singers. And to be honest, you lose so much of the music when you do it, which is why I like concert operas so much, because some of this stuff is like the Falstaff finale, which is crazy difficult, is huge fugue, and I did it at Covent Garden, and one day Daniele Gatti just said, let's just do a musical rehearsal of this, and we were doing dynamics, and we were doing like all these incredible things. It sounded so good, and then we went back on stage, and it all just that's a great production visually. It is stunning, but that's just what happens.
Sometimes the productions, when I won't go down that road too much, but some of them at some of the larger opera houses, they're so busy trying to entertain you with movies going on while other things are going on, and where's the singer, and that kind of thing. And that can be very distracting, especially if the person who's doing this isn't always true, but sometimes the directors don't really understand what's going on musically. And even sometimes the storyline gets the story.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really.
So what kind of music do you listen to when you're not singing opera or oratorio and so forth?
I'm kind of boring. I like musicals. So my son is actually he's doing a production of The Mikado right now, which is, although it's not The Mikado, because it's too racist. So they've said it in Scotland. It's called the Mac Auto, which I think is very clever. And so I like stuff like that, catchy stuff. If I'm on a road trip or something, I'll have like Dolly Parton or some kind of bluegrassy music on. Or if I'm having people over, I'm like, let's just have a little big band in the background. So, but my kids listen to just the worst possible. My older son, he's really into rap, and he keeps playing these songs. He's like, Mom, I think you're gonna like this one, and then he'll play one that he just I mean, they're all the same. It's just some guy going, yeah.
That's what they say about opera.
No, it's so bad. It's so bad. So I mean, I even prefer pop over that kind of. It's just not. It's not my thing. But the kids and their memories are like incredible. My kids, they both know all the words to all these songs. I don't know. What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to opera like I'm
Exclusively.
broken. I'm broken. When I was 5 years old, I loved my grandfather, my father's father, and my grandmother, my mother's mother. They both loved opera, and no one in my family liked opera at all, except the two of them. But I loved them. So when I was at the house, my grandmother's house in North Reading, I would listen to Milton Cross and the Met, and I loved opera. I was like young, but my grandfather, who I'm named after, he had 78 records, and I was 5 years old, and I fell in love with Enrico Caruso.
Oh.
And I played it, and I went, Grandpa, what is this? And he knew Geraldine Farrar, who was actually was born in the town next door here in Melrose. Yeah. Oh. She sang with Caruso and all of that. So he used to tell me stories. He was an amateur violinist, and he was a photographer, which for those days, in the 40s, people didn't have cameras. They didn't have cell phones. So he did okay. He made postcards and photos for the Old North Church in Boston.
Yeah.
But he loved opera, and so he let me play. I went there. I remember playing hours and hours of 78s with my grandfather at 5 years old, and I thought, why? And then the obsession. It was a friend of mine said, don't call it an obsession, call it a passion. My passion for opera never went away, and I listened to opera every day. During the pandemic, I listened to 2 to 3 full operas a day because I wanted to listen to the ones that,
All right. So what's your desert island? What's your pick? You tell what's top 2.
That's impossible. It's impossible.
All right. How about just your favorite opera?
I know what it is, but I don't want to say it because then I feel like I'm betraying all the rest of them.
Oh.
The opera that I would never ever not be without. I could never not have Traviata in my life. But I love Puccini, so.
I did my senior thesis on Traviata. I loved it. I still love it. It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Ama mi Alfredo is got to be like, I just feel my heartstrings tugging, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
It's a story. It's everything about it, the music. But I love Puccini. But then how could I not have Handel and Rossini, Donizetti, Bellini? I also love the dialogue of I love Poulenc's music. La Voix Humaine is one of my favorite pieces of music. So I don't know. It's whatever I'm playing at the time, I guess. But I will say Traviata because you have to have something. And then, but with Puccini, it's impossible. I just all of them. Even Vili and Edgar. You see why Popea ends winning out in the end. I mean, you're playing for keeps, and you got it right, and you look great, and the scenery and everything. That was very sparse. It was like but it worked. They had just enough, and the costumes. It was wonderful. But the one that I love that. That's my favorite. I don't know if I have a favorite, but that's again we're back to favorites. Your Serpina.
Oh my
was
gosh,
amazing,
and it's fun.
And I saw both times, but they have 2 operas together, and it's done it's an unusual take.
It's brilliant. I don't understand why that, because when we did it the first time, people were very tepid about it, and then we did it the second time. I think they kind of got it a little bit more. But that CD has just come out.
Wonderful.
It's wonderful. Yeah. That's an example of a CD that really lives up to a staged performance. It's so sparkling. I don't say that to say it about myself, but the orchestra especially. It's just like.
Well, it was interesting because if one were studying your videos, how you change as a personality is dramatic because the Popea is very engaging and very erotic.
Yeah.
And the Serpina is like, she's a piece of work. She's a lot of fun.
Oh, she's
you
so fun.
You easily were having a lot of fun in that. I mean,
I don't get to do comedy that often.
But you were you got it.
It was funny.
You got
it was funny. And it was a great show.
And it's so playful. The music, the schizioso.
Yeah.
It's so playful, the music. And I love it. It's a wonderful piece.
I think that CD is especially great because Paul Odette is, just a fantastic lutenist. He plays the mandolino in that, which is, you've got Paul with his big beard, and he has this teeny tiny instrument, and he's always smiling. It makes him so happy to play this, and he's using it all throughout that CD, and it really does add like a country kind of spirit to everything. So yeah, I'm happy with that CD.
I want to thank you for visiting us today at Speaking Opera. It's been delightful. I've had so much fun.
Me too.
You're wonderful. And thank you for making, there's a light in the world of music that gets us through all of this. I'm sure it's on both sides.
It is. It is.
It really
music
is. But we need you as much as you need us.
Exactly.
And I think I feel comfortable. I don't use the word need often, but I think that it's okay in this case because it's how we get through things. Music is a great healer.
Yeah.
It's a great healer in difficult times.
I absolutely agree.
So thank you.
Thanks, Edward.
Amanda Forsythe, it's been delightful.
Speaking Opera focuses on documenting the career activities of currently active singers, composers, musicians, and authors in the field of operatic performance and scholarship, and specialists in the field of audio recording, as well as those who have retired fully or partially from performing and/or teaching. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.